What is going on, my friends? I am so pumped today about getting to connect with you guys. Now, I got a little bit of a head congestion going on for some reason today, but we're not going to let that stop us. We're going to jump right in here and just enjoy our time together. And, today is one of those preaching to the choir kind of messages where I am digging in deep on some things that I think we all kind of struggle with. And it's the idea that we sometimes look at life and we have this dysfunctional relationship with life. We have a dysfunctional relationship with it because we have all these fears and we let the present moment, these moments that come in like waves, that we let them, instead of just washing over us, they tend to knock us down and drag us in underneath with them sometimes. And so I want to start here with a story today. As you're joining me, what I would love for you to do is go ahead and type your name in and let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're from. This will help me kind of begin to formulate a plan for how I can better serve you in this community. We have a lot of great things that we're going to be doing here soon that are coming, and I can't wait to share with you the exciting new things. I've got some coaching plans that are coming your way, and I've got some great mastermind opportunities that are coming that I think will really, really drive home some opportunities for you to dig in deep, get to know yourself, build a bigger why around your life, and ultimately create a game plan for how you can better build this life for yourself in a way that serves not only you, but serves the whole of this world. So, but I want to tell you a quick story, and that story is one that comes from Eckhart Tolle's book. Maybe you've seen it, A New Earth. And it's a fantastic book, first and foremost. It's one of those that is so meaty that literally I go back in and I read not even a chapter, but just a section in a chapter and just sit there and meditate on it. So I highly recommend it if you get that opportunity to go ahead and get that book, take a look at it. But this one is a story that he tells about Zen Master Hakuin. And I want to kind of tell you a little bit about this. Zen Master Hakuin lived in a town in Japan, and he was held in high regard by many people. He was a spiritual teacher that people came to regularly and were deeply, when they were deeply distressed or they were seeking wisdom. But it happened that the daughter of one of his neighbors got pregnant. And when she was being questioned by her father, who got very angry and was coming on hardcore with lots of pressure to know the identity of the father, she finally told him that it was Hakuin, the Zen master. Well, he was incredibly angry, and the parents rushed over immediately to Hakuin and told him, with a lot of yelling and just in his face, accusing him and telling him that their daughter had confessed that he was the father. All he said in this response, all Hakuin said as a response was, "Is that so?" Now, the scandal was spread all over the town, going well beyond anything that the master could have ever imagined. He lost his reputation, but this didn't trouble him. And nobody, people quit coming to see him, and he remained completely unmoved by the whole event. And when the child was born, the parents brought the baby to him, and they weren't going to take responsibility, and they gave the baby to him and said, "You're the father, so you look after him." And the master took the loving care of the child and just rolled with the punches. A year later, the mother of the baby remorsefully confessed that the true father was actually a young man who worked at a butcher shop. And in great distress, they ran over to Hakuin and apologized, asked forgiveness, and said, "We are really sorry." And they wanted to take the baby back. The daughter confessed to them that, I'm totally messing up, but their daughter confessed that he is not the father and that they're going to take the baby back. And Master Hakuin's response was, "Is that so?" It's incredible to me. I mean, he hands the baby over, and this story represents something about a response to life that sees life very differently through a lens that isn't good or bad, or with very little judgment, if you will. It's a story that creates for me this, well, a recognition of my dysfunctional nature in this life. So the question I have for you today is, which of the characters do you relate to in this story? Did you relate more to the daughter who is always playing the blame game or seeking to preserve her parents, the shame, and thinking that it would be better to lie about who the father was because it was a butcher, a young man for that matter, and lie and make this esteemed person the father? Or would you relate to the father who's angry and ashamed and is finding a way to cover his shame and avoiding all responsibility in this situation? Or maybe it's the real father at the butcher shop who just isn't present. You're always hiding. You're just not around to take responsibility. Or do you relate to the Zen master Hakyun, who is unmoved and welcoming of life and letting that come to him and just embracing it, unmoved? So go ahead and answer the question real quick down there. I'd love to hear what your responses are. By the way, if you're just now joining us, we are deep into a discussion about living into a life that is no longer dysfunctional, no longer has a dysfunctional relationship with the present now, the life that we've been given. So if you're just joining us, go ahead and type your name in now and let me know where you're from. I would love to be able to kind of be able to call on you guys, talk to you guys as we go through this. So, and I just got finished telling this story, and I'd love to know which character you relate to. Go ahead and type that in the comments and let me know which one that is. Don't be one of those guys and gals that just sits by and, passively watches and creeps on this. Let's go. Come on, folks. Participate. This is going to be a great little session. The thing that blows me away about the master's response, and the thing that's just mind-blowing, is that he welcomes the present now as a friend. Whether he carries the joy of good news or the burden of what could be perceived as bad news, he refuses to take part in the drama of life. And, can you relate to that? How many of us have gotten so swept up or are the cause of drama in our life, where we go to the office and we hear the little buzz about all the complaining that's going on because of something that the boss just recently did, and we get sucked into that and we feel the negative energy. Maybe it's this idea that what you feel like in your life is that everything that's coming your way right now is constantly just a burden. That you've asked yourself this question in your life. I thought not a question, but maybe you've thought to yourself, maybe you've looked in the mirror and you say to yourself, man, I thought I'd be further down the road than I am today. It's one of those questions that we face where we look at ourselves and we look at where we're at, and we're remembering that 20-year-old who had big dreams and had a whole lot of hope for what was going to be next. And you're looking at your life today, for me, 25 years later, and you kind of look at it and you go, this isn't what I thought it was going to be like. Things have happened to you. Crises have come. Challenges we've faced. This is kind of the way things kind of roll in our world. Hi, Greta. I'm glad you're joining us now. This is awesome to have you. So welcome. So I want you to join me in a discovery of some things. Like, there are 3 questions that we can use to discover how our relationships with this life may be dysfunctional or not. There are questions that will enlighten us into, are we present? Do we like to be present? Do we like to sit in the midst of this moment, the only moment that we really have? Or do we spend this present moment thinking about things from our past or worrying about things that could happen in the future based upon how we have been impacted in our life through these things? The first question that we have is, Am I treating this moment right now as an ends to a means? As a means to an end. I'll get that right. Am I treating this present moment right now as a means to another end, some future end? Many things in our life are easy to welcome in. I mean, when my dog comes in and he wants to lick me in the morning and wagging his tail, gives me that sloppy kiss, it's so easy to welcome the joy that he brings in that moment. But what about those other things? We get fired after, say, 15 years of service at a job that you've been dedicated to, or some of the most recent legislation that's been handed down that has been incredibly controversial about the nature of Roe versus Wade. I mean, when Roe versus Wade, and we feel like we're going backwards in this life, do we feel like this is that it's a threat to the future that we had hoped that would come? Or maybe it's the loss of a wife during labor, only to lose the baby also days later. We had a friend that this actually happened to. True story. These things are surely, right, those things that should and would and can turn our world upside down. And I don't want to minimize the challenges or the atrocities that come in this life. These situations happen to us every single day. That we meet those people, we see those people on Facebook. It's like it's prevalent to see the things in life that seem to be coming down around us and oppressing us, or at least suppressing us from living into the joy of the moment. The implications and the consequences that are unseen leave us fearful, regretful, and angry so many times. But the key here is how we treat these situations in the present moment. It's critical to how life responds to us as well. If we see life as the enemy of all of the things that come at us, if we see life as this present moment as an enemy, and we are struggling to embrace these things that come over us, then all we're doing is we are resisting the only moment that we have, and we are impacting the rest of the next moment and the next moment on the basis of the negativity or the things that sweep over us. But the question is that can we begin to understand that life is about things that, are frankly, they consist of good and bad and all these judgments that we place, but the things in life that are bad are nothing more than the contrast in this life to the good. You see, I struggle sometimes with getting caught up with judgments myself of what's good, what's bad. I label myself many times over with a deep, dark struggle of, feeling like that this world is not ever going to be something that I can succeed at, because I get caught up in and maybe the punch that is a low blow to the gut, or I get caught up in, the moment where I'm interrupted trying to get something done that is really good, and that interruption makes me feel like I'm never going to get it done. Can you relate to this? If you can, tell me. Let me know if you can relate to anything we're talking about here. You see, without the contrast of the bad, how would we ever recognize the good? Without the contrast of losing that job, how would we ever really understand the joy that comes with having a job, or landing that job, or getting that promotion? This becomes the framework of our mindset and creates in us the challenge of the second question, which is, do you see this moment, this present moment, as some obstacle in your life to overcome? You see, when we create a habit of overlooking the challenges of this present moment, we create obstacles that prohibit us from moving forward in our life. We develop an impatience that comes from anything outside of our own perspective. We feed frustration, believing the lie that when it rains, it has to pour. We dream up outcomes that only serve to stress us out beyond our imagination. When we see life as an obstacle that we must overcome, as a problem, even the solutions that we create only create larger problems. It is a path to self-destruction. It's where addiction is born, delusion, and victimization of your own present moment. You lose out. You begin to think that the world is out to get you. And nothing could be further from the truth. But this mindset leads us to the final question that is really key in discovering if you are actually in a dysfunctional relationship with life. And that is, am I making an enemy of the present now? You see, when we choose to see life as something that is against us, and we create that enemy, the one enemy, the number one enemy of our state, it impacts the state of mind, it impacts our perception of reality, and sadly, sometimes even our very existence becomes our enemy. That we turn in on ourselves and we start to attack ourselves with those ants. Y'all may have heard me talk about the automatic negative thoughts. Those things can bombard us and they get stuck. But in that state, we live in a world of, I should have done this or I shouldn't have done that, and then everything would be okay. And we rage against those who threaten our freedom. We retaliate with hurtful rhetoric, with words that just basically serve nothing more than what it did to us, and we create more hurt. Hurt people, as they say. My hope is that we can break down the walls and the fortresses that we build around our hearts when we begin to see our life, the present moment, as an enemy. That we can begin to not see it as a predator. That's always that this life is not some lion just lion. There you go. This isn't some predator, a lion lying in wait to destroy us, to eat us, to attack us. We don't live in that world where we have to live into the lizard brain anymore, where we don't have to make enemies out of all the things that come onto us. And even if we did, what if we could begin to see it differently? What if we could begin to understand that the truth about life is that experiences are really fullest with contrast. It's like a piece of art. Let me see. I'm gonna pull something up here real quick because I think it's a beautiful analogy. Let me jump over here to. I got this great screen over here that it's coming. Just a second. But when you take a look at this and you see the beauty of nature, and you see the power of this waterfall, and you see the contrast of the mountain with the trees in front, it's that very thing that ultimately brings us to a place and an awareness that allows us to embrace life more fully. It's where the beauty of life resides, is when we can understand that there are these peaks in life, these high moments, these moments where we get to embrace the full picture of what we look down upon in life. We see other mountains and other terrain, and we see the valleys and the beauty of that, and the rivers and the waterfalls all around us. But nobody can live at the top of a mountain. The top of a mountain is not meant for life. The oxygen is shallow. You can't go deep. You can't stay for long. You're at that point, you're basically, what's the word I'm looking for? The weather is coming at you. You are vulnerable to being struck by lightning as soon as that storm sweeps in quickly. You have no shelter. There's no place to hide in the midst of the dangerous things that can come, let alone the sun that beats down on you like 1,000 degrees hotter when you're at the top of the mountain. But we have avoided for so long the idea that the valleys are actually where the beauty really resides. My hope is that we can begin to see life in more of this regard, where we love the high moments, where we get the 10,000 feet or 14,000 foot view, if you will, but it doesn't sustain life. And we can look down at the valley and begin to see the fullness of life, the place that we reside, where we often live, and everything in between. It's that contrast between the highs and the lows, and somewhere in the middle that creates the balance of life. And it's those moments that where we can begin to, like Master Harakun, look at life and go, is that so? Is that so? What a great way and response to life, to see life coming to you, to embrace it with a huge hug, to welcome it, to love it, to care for it, to tell it, welcome into my life no matter what it brings, whether it be good or bad according to the world's judgment, but instead where we can begin to see that it has no impact except for the impact of moving forward and to love the moment that we've been given. Think this with me for a second. When people get caught up in this kind of stuff, they sometimes struggle with the very notion of what it means to actually live in the present moment. So if you're there, I want you to close your eyes with me for just a minute, okay? I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to do nothing but think about your next thought. I'll repeat it. Think about your next thought. And the very act, and now you can open your eyes. Now let me know, did anybody have a thought that popped in their brain, or did you find it impossible to actually have a thought? Did you find it impossible to actually, have a next thought? Because all you could do is think about trying to have a next thought, which then immediately eliminates it. You see, that's what these questions do for us. The questions of that we're dealing with here about, do you have a dysfunctional relationship? The question of, excuse me, guys, I am sorry. Am I living my life as a means to a future end that isn't this moment? Or am I making this present moment an obstacle for moving forward in my life? And the harsher one yet is, am I making an enemy of the present now? What I would like to ask you guys to do, and this is a great opportunity this week, is take a moment. Set aside 5 minutes every hour or 2 or 3 times a day. You can set an alarm. Put it in your Apple Watch or on your iPhone, or if you guys have some other brand, I'm sorry that I can't. I don't know how those function. But take that and set an alarm for 3 to 4 times a day, or every hour on the hour if you get a chance. And take 5 minutes to go through these questions. Am I seeing my life right now, this moment that has just arrived, as a means to some future end? Am I creating an obstacle in this moment? Am I presenting myself with those automatic negative thoughts about life that is coming at me to the point that I can't even move forward in what I'm really passionate about? And even worse, not worse, and even harder to overcome is, do I see this life as an enemy of all the things that I hope for in my life? Because the key to this moment is in spending that time when we can begin to answer those questions honestly and truthfully, we begin to discover that our mind gets out of the way. That when we shine light on the truth of where we're at, and we can see that moment as, oh my goodness, yes, I am seeing my life as an enemy. I am seeing this present moment. I am seeing what is about to happen or coming at me right this second as something bad, horrific, a crisis, or whatever you label it as, and not able to bring it in and embrace it as it is. In those moments, when we uncover that, we can reframe it in a way where we can say, well, I want to welcome it as a friend. I want to see this as not an obstacle for my life, but as something that I can embrace and learn from and be taught. And it is a hard lesson, and it can be so insensitive. I've done this with my wife so many times. It's not don't do this. I do not recommend this. But I've done this with my wife and my kids and even some of my friends where they're telling me about something horrific that's happening or something bad, or maybe it's not even that bad. Maybe it's just not going the way they want it. And I say to them, so what is it teaching you? And my goodness, that does not go over very well. In fact, I've just avoided that question with my wife for sure, because, I'm just there to listen. And when we do the same for ourselves and we ask these questions and we don't get into this mindset of, I've got to figure this out, all we're doing is answering honestly and beginning to listen to our own voice, the mind that is within us. When we're listening to the mind and what's happening within us, we become a witness. And as a witness, we are connecting with the true, deeper self. You are literally beginning to boil up that thing within you, that weekend warrior that is able to then begin to think creatively, to move past obstacles, to welcome life as a teacher and as a friend, and something that can bring forth creativity. One of my favorite concepts and constructs in the Bible, many of you may or may not know that I'm a former pastor. But there's a concept that is at the very beginning of Genesis, in Genesis 1, where it says that the Spirit of God was hovering over the deep. And that deep was understood in the Hebrew language as this chaotic sea, where, according to legends that were going on way back in the Hebrew day, that the sea was this place where horrible sea monsters were, where there was just this chaos. And it makes the depth of this creative story so much more beautiful because it sounds a little bit more like the idea of the Big Bang Theory, where there's just this explosion of chaos that ensues. And out of the chaos, God says, "Let there be." And I don't care if you believe in the Big Bang Theory or if you believe in creationism theory, or it's not what it's called, but the theory of the beginning of Genesis, where God speaks into existence in a literal 7 days. Whatever you believe, the point of the stories, and both of them, is that out of chaos, goodness is created. Life is born. This place we have, the contrast of the night and the dark. The dark and the light. And the contrast of the water and the grounds that are separated in order to create life that's in the sea and life that is on land. And the trees and the plants that are brought up from the ground, and then the humans that are then placed in that realm where it's already taken care of. You see, the contrast of life is what is so beautiful about the artwork of this present moment. And if we begin to chase after this life like it's an enemy to be destroyed, like we've got to overcome it. I mean, I've even heard that language in some of these motivational things. You got to grab life by the cojones, if you know what I mean. And somehow that's the thing that we do in order to embrace life. No, what we do is we begin to see life in a different light, in a light that allows us to embrace it as a friend and not as a foe. Here, listen, guys. Forgive me for my nose. It's driving me crazy. Do that exercise this week. Take some time each and every day, especially at least through the end of this day. Set a couple of alarms and take a moment. Take a moment to breathe in deep and walk through the questions. Am I treating this moment as a means to an end? Do I see this moment as an obstacle for moving forward? Or do I see this present moment as an enemy in my life that is keeping me from everything that is great and good? Or am I welcoming it? And when it brings me news, I literally just respond in light of Zen Master Hakuin. Is that so? Is that so? May we be those people who live life in the realm of being able to just embrace it as it comes. And I'm preaching to myself more than anything. But what would it look like if we could bring into this moment the goodness, the fullness of the entire beautiful picture that we live in, this world that has got so much to offer? What would it look like if we could begin to no longer see fear as an enemy, but the thing that we're afraid of as something that is helping us grow into and mature into a more compassionate person that can understand where other people are coming from and the challenges that they face in this life? What would that look like if we could begin to see this life as a partner, as something that is looking to help us all flourish, and not victimizing ourselves as somebody who stands out as that the thumb of life has got us held down? Guys and gals, I've loved and enjoyed being with you today. Join me next week as we are going to continue down this path of beginning to break free from some of the mindset patterns that have created a dysfunctional, understanding of life. Because when we have that dysfunctional understanding of life and we don't remove that and break free from it like we are working to do, how can we ever begin to succeed at anything in this life that's going to produce good things? That out of the chaos of our life, we can create something good. And we can only do that if we can begin to welcome this life and this present moment as a friend, an old friend that we forgot. We used to know him when we were babies. We used to know him. So set your calendars, 12:05 next Friday. We'll be doing this all again. And I look forward to hanging out with you guys. If you wouldn't mind, take a second. And if this has been powerful for you or has been encouraging to you, please take a second and share this link with someone who needs to hear a message of breaking free from this life's darkness, this idea of having an enemy with life. And be sure to like my page where I offer free content regularly on a daily basis. You're getting free, good content that is encouraging and trying to build a different kind of life. Creating something out of the chaos of my own life is my biggest goal. I desire more than anything to inspire you to be your greatest self, the best version that you've ever known of yourself. That can't be bad because I know good and well that I've got room for improvement and we all have that opportunity. And hey guys, my goal is to enjoy the life we've got. Let's live in the valleys, live in the flourishing greenery of the trees and the nature around us. Let's embrace the good times as well as the bad and begin to understand this is how we create a beautiful life together. Go with God, be at peace. Talk to y'all later.